What would the economy look like should Democratic presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton win the election? Here with more is Harry Stein, Director of Fiscal Policy at the Center for American Progress, joining us now from Washington. And Harry, of course, just because you're elected president doesn't mean all of your policies become law. Clinton would, of course, have to work with Congress and likely a Republican House. But she has talked about raising the minimum wage to $12 an hour. And talk about what that would mean for the economy.
Well, raising the minimum wage is a very important step to take to make sure that the lowest wage workers are able to share in economic growth. And we actually haven't seen that for the last several decades. Wages, particularly wages at the bottom, have been quite stagnant. It also, I think, gets at this issue of, getting at the division between what's business's job and what's the government's job. When the minimum wage falls behind, as it has, unfortunately, when businesses are able to pay poverty level wages, then public benefits have to kick in and fill in the difference. And just one example of how raising the minimum wage addresses that, if we raise the minimum wage to $12 an hour, we would actually save $5.3 billion a year just in food stamp costs alone.
All right, now she also took some shots at the, quote, gig economy earlier this summer, largely referring to companies like Uber. She said something along the lines of, these companies provide jobs that aren't exactly the traditional stable jobs that many people once had.
So I think the gig economy raises a lot of difficult questions, and not just. And I think that's an issue on both sides. I mean, I think what Hillary Clinton said is that it creates a lot of opportunity and innovation, but also these challenges that need to be raised, dealing with things like how do you make workplace protections like unemployment insurance and workman's comp work for people who are in the gig economy who don't have a traditional employer-employee relationship. But like I said, that's an issue that I think is challenging on both sides. So an example where this actually, I think, is getting addressed in a positive way is on healthcare, where thanks to the Affordable Care Act, people that are in the gig economy, like Uber drivers, are able to go and get health insurance even though it's not provided to them by their employer. And that's actually why you've seen Uber come out as a major supporter of the Affordable Care Act.
Right. And give us a sense of her overall economic vision, largely in line with traditional Democratic ideology.
So I think all these policies come from this view that the economy grows in the most sustainable way when we have a thriving and productive middle class, as opposed to the trickle-down view that economic growth comes only from the top and that we really have to focus on what people call the job creators, as if people at the top are the only job creators in the economy. And so what we've seen from these policies is making sure that people can balance their work and their family obligations, investing in education and encouraging apprenticeships so we have a more productive workforce. And also encouraging profit-sharing schemes so that workers actually have a stake in the companies where they do their job.
Although she also said that she is against President Obama's Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal. What does that mean for the economy?
Well, it's hard to say. I think that there's a couple different things going on with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. There's both the lowering of tariffs that you traditionally have with these deals, but also then a lot of what I would say almost non-trade barriers or things like the investor state dispute board. I think there's a lot of difficult details in that agreement. And, we frankly haven't seen all the details yet. They're starting to just come out now. So I think it's hard to evaluate that until we get a better sense.
All right, Harry, we'll leave it there. Harry Stein from the Center for American Progress. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Scott Gamm, and you're watching The Street.